What's going on, family? Welcome back to another week and another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Akeem Haynes. Before we get into this week's episode of the podcast and I introduce my special guest, man, we got some big news, right? So over the weekend, we got an email that said that Unscripted is in the top 50 in the self-improvement section over in Europe, in a country called Slovenia. Look, to my listeners in Slovenia, look, I appreciate you, right? You guys are doing the thing over there. You guys are rocking with us over there, and I really appreciate it. And for those listening, if you could do us a huge favor and head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating or a review of the podcast. Look, this truly helps us in pushing and moving this podcast forward. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what things we could improve on. Let us know some guests that you would like to hear on the podcast. But if you could do us a huge favor and head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating or review of the podcast, it would truly help us and go a long way. If you would like to support the podcast, apart from, leaving a review and rating of the podcast, then I suggest you check out our Patreon account where you can get all access behind the scenes content to the podcast, to speaking engagements, and to also some news that we may be having and doing in the future. We got some exciting things in the works that we are going to make exclusive to our Patreon. So I've always said before, right? Unscripted is a family-oriented feel. I want it to feel that way, right? This isn't something that you just come and you leave and you don't get anything from it, right? We want to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to add value to your life and to hopefully bring joy to a time in your day where it may be tough to find it, right? So with that being said, let's get into this week's episode of Unscripted. So my guest this week is Canadian wide receiver Natey Adjei. Originally from Toronto, he was an all-around athlete who played different sports but found his love for football stood above them all. After high school, he went south to further his education and played football at City College of San Francisco before finishing his collegiate career at the University of Buffalo. Look, shout out to the junior colleges out there. It's a grind, it's tough, man, but when you're from junior college, you're built different. And only if you know about the junior college system do you really know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But after finishing up his collegiate career at the University of Buffalo in 2013, Natey was drafted to the Toronto Argonauts with the 22nd overall pick. Now a veteran in the Canadian Football League, Natey has found balance on the field and off the field. With the pandemic, he has focused on other ventures, including the very popular podcast that he started called All Ball, where he gets to put his journalistic passion on display, where he touches base with guests from the CFL, the NFL, and from all walks of life. So without further ado, enjoy this week's episode with Natey Adjei.
Yeah, I like the setup you got going on back there, bro.
I appreciate it. There's a few things from the football career.
Man, is that something you always do? You always collect a little something from each game, each team, each year?
You know what? It's not intentional, but the last 3-4 years, at the end of the year, I always make sure I get something, just because you know how sports is. You just never know, what's gonna happen, whether you're gonna be on that team next year. Things change year to year, right? So I always make sure to get something, the last 3-4 years to remember the year by. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, bro, because I always tell people, especially in sports, right? Like on a smaller scale, but it's still big, right? Like there is such thing as sports like PTSD. You know what I'm saying? Because you be coming in some days, you're like, man, I may get traded. I know for me in track, I'm like, man, I may get hurt. I may lose my contract. I'm like, man, I shouldn't be distressed about being successful.
Yes, bro, you're absolutely right. Like, I remember, times just walking into the facility, and before you're, established and you know what to expect, like, things are so up and down, they're so fickle. You'll walk into a facility, you'll see a new guy that's, you've never seen before, the team just signed, and you start wondering, hey, how does this affect me? Like, does this mean I get less playing time? Does he come and take my spot? And it's that constant, everyday anxiety that you have walking into the building that a lot of people don't understand, because, it's a performance, based industry, right? They pay you based on your performance. And if you ever slip up or you're not performing like they think, and a lot of times it's, another man's judgment on your performance, right? So
Mm,
you have no control of that. You have
mhm.
zero control of that. So you could be playing like your best football of your life, but if you don't fit another man's idea of how you should be playing, or they have different ideas, or you don't fit the salary cap or this or that, you might be gone. So that's always in the back of your mind, like whether you're, a star player or, at the bottom of the depth chart kind of guy.
Man, that bleeds into my first question, right? Because away from sports, last year had so many uncertainties with the pandemic, and we're still dealing with it, still trying to get through it. But last year, as being a professional athlete, being in the Canadian Football League, there was so many ups and downs, at least from what I was reading about, man. Double-edged question. How did you handle the day-to-day, not from an athlete perspective, but from a father, a husband, trying to adjust to everything that is going on in the world? And not to mention that for the past however many years, you were gearing up to play football, and now it wasn't happening, and certain uncertainties in that field of it, man. How did you handle the day to day, especially from a mental aspect of things?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. It was tough because, like you said, my whole life since I was about 12 years old, every year
Oh,
has been
wow.
getting ready for playing football or playing a sport. Right? There's never been a year where I didn't play a sport, so it was extremely awkward. It was there's a lot of emotions that went into it because on one hand, your body is like so in tune with doing something at a certain time every single year. And now you just have to refocus and understand that that's not there right now.
Yeah.
So for me, I just took it as okay. I got two young daughters, right? I like there are times where I have to sacrifice and have to train and be away, be on the road for team stuff. And like this is a chance where I don't know what is the universe kind of setting me back and like, hey, you got to slow down. And it gave me an opportunity to really spend more quality time with my two young daughters and more family time, especially with my wife, because like I said, there's been so many times where you got to sacrifice, and they obviously understand, but it still hurts, when you got to
Yeah.
go on the, what I mean, when you got to be away. So it was. I don't want to say it was a blessing in disguise, but it really helped me in other aspects of my life, though, to be more balanced, right? Not to be so sports focused, because it also gave me understanding that sports. We know this, but until it hits you, you don't understand that sports can be gone at any
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
So the things that matter really, I think every day is your family, right? Because they're going to be there forever, right? So it made me understand. It gave me a better understanding of the things that are the most important, the relationships that I need to foster every day, and I appreciate it because I saw a lot of things that I didn't think I would experience to the extent like. I memorized every Disney musical right throughout. So it was definitely a blessing, and I appreciate it. And it also gave me time to think about what I want to do outside of
Mm,
football, right?
mm-hmm.
Because when you're in a sport, it's so they always say, never have a plan B or don't focus on other things because it's gonna take away from your what you're doing in that moment. But for me, I was like, this was built in. Like I didn't have my sport to think about, so it forced me to think about what I want to do outside of my sport. And I think that was important, and I think it was important for a lot of guys because a lot of guys never have the opportunity to hit that pause and really focus on and have the time to focus on things that they're interested in, passions outside their sport. So I took it as it was a fortunate occurrence, for us to miss this season because I got an opportunity to get into things that I really want to do post football that I would have never gotten to do while I was still playing. So I always try to look at everything as a positive, and it happened for a reason, and just try to make the most of it. So more family time, and I got a chance to figure out some of the things I want to do post football. So it's never a negative, and you never lose. You always learn.
Man, that's so interesting you say that because I think that's something that's not talked about very often. I always make it a habit wherever I go to speak to the youth, and I'm sure you do it as well too. There is more to an athlete than just the physical side than what you do, right? People love you when you're catching passes, tackling people, throwing TD passes, running fast, jumping high. But when you are out of the sport, it's like they look at you as something different, right? And I think one of the hardest things that an athlete faces is they don't get told that very much, right? Was there a moment, I know this pandemic showed us for you, but was there a moment that you said, you know what, there are other things that I can do out here? Did that ever cross your mind? Because I know for me growing up, I heard a story about this person at the Olympics. This is when I was like 12. I didn't even know about the Olympics at this time. And he was telling me that this guy went to the Olympic Games, right? He was projected to win. Man, he'd been dominating swimming all year, got to the Olympic Games and basically ate himself out of a medal, right? Because unlimited food, you don't got to wait at no line, right? So he actually put on 30 pounds in a span of like a week because he would just eat and eat. Now, obviously, there's pressure there, there's nerves, there's all these different things and trying to cope with it. But after he went to the games and he left the games, nobody wanted to mess with him anymore. Nobody wanted to give him any endorsements, anything like that. So in my mind, I was like, man, not that I would be in that position, but I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. So I searched and sought for other things very early in my life. Was that kind of similar for you, or were you just so drilled into playing football?
That's a great story you just shared, and oftentimes, man, like your performance is it almost correlates with how people treat you, and that's unfortunate because a lot of times people don't understand like athletes are human beings too. All of
Yeah,
us are,
yeah,
and especially at this level, all of us have been stars on our youth team. Just to even get to this level, best players on our college. And things of that nature to get to this level. So for me, honestly, I since I've been a kid, I've been so fascinated with the media aspect
mm,
of sports, right? I'd be watching sports and like, Ahmad Rashad would be interviewing Michael Jordan. And I love Michael Jordan, huge Michael Jordan fan. But I'm like, man, what's it like to be Ahmad Rashad, right? Like, obviously like you don't have the pressure of being Michael Jordan, but you're around the sport, you're working and you're having fun. Because I was watching a lot of his inside the NBA stuff and he's like, playing basketball and like he's just like having doing what he normally do
Joe,
but
fun,
getting paid
looking
for it,
just
right?
just
And so,
fun.
right. So for me, that was kind of what I was interested in early. But obviously, I was, obviously good enough at my sport to continue. But I've always had that love for the media side of things, and always, even Cabby on the street, right? I watched
Hmm.
him, and then I figured out, man, how could I be like Cabby? And most guys are like, how could I be like an athlete? But I'm thinking, how could I be like Cabby or Ahmad Rashad? So that was kind of my angle, and I've always had that love and interest in it. So, like you said, for this pandemic, I was able to, see some of the stuff that you've been doing with the podcast, and gave me inspiration. Like, hey, there's no time better than now, to start a podcast and do some of the stuff I like to do, like talk to my friends, figure out their stories, have fun, laugh. So that was some of that's something that I've thought about, and thankfully for the pandemic that I've been able to start and put my foot down and you know through my podcast, been able to do some work with Sportsnet with their NFL coverage. So that's something that I'm definitely thankful for, and don't take for granted for sure.
Well, let's get into your career, man, because me being out west, right? I always hear about out east, right? I always, like, I remember um, I played football and ran track, and in high school, I would always hear about, man, so and so is doing this. They just ran for 300 yards. I said, what? No, watch this, right? So it's the competitive nature, which I think that's another thing that Canada can be better at as a whole. But what was it like for you, man? Because I'm sure you were probably a triple sport athlete yourself. You could probably hoop a little bit. You're playing some football, running some track. But I want to talk about the recruiting process because I don't think people understand how tough it is to get recruited up north when you're trying to go down south, right? All we see is the NFL, right? We're watching the CFL, but I think every football player growing up, you want to go to the NFL. But what was that high school journey like for you, man? And what was the recruiting process? Because before you went to Buffalo, you went to San Fran.
Yeah.
Walk me through a little bit about that process, man.
Yeah, man, like you said, man, like as a kid in Canada, you're aware of the CFL, but if you were like a competitive guy like we all are, you want to play at the highest level, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
watching the NFL and figuring out how to get to that level, and you're seeing NFL players. I remember when I was young, I'm watching NFL players, and then I'm thinking about, okay, where do they go to college? Okay, they're going to all these, USC, Florida, Texas, all these schools, right? And then you start thinking, how do I get there?
Yeah.
And you start doing that whole thing, and luckily for me. I had a good friend of mine who is a scout for the Miami Dolphins now, right? He was really into recruiting and had a pulse on like how that world works. So he was like, hey man, like for you to get qualified for these schools, you got to do your SAT, you got to register with the clearinghouse. Like he like really was on it, right, and walked me through that whole process. So honestly, that's how it started. So you got a clearinghouse and SATs, but you still need the recruits to come up here. So like, how do you get recruits to come up to Canada? Like, they don't trust the Canadian game that much. It's getting better now, but back when I was coming up 08, 09, there wasn't a lot of scouts coming up to Canada to watch games, right? So we had to make a highlight tape of all my best plays. So we literally made a highlight tape of all my best plays in high school, and I played some rep football in the summertime too, right? So made a whole recruiting bio and all that thing, and sent it to every school.
You gotta sell yourself.
Yeah, like I had to, like a salesman. So we sent it to every school. Heard back from a few schools, started getting more letters. But the main thing they kept saying was like, the level of competition, like we don't really trust it, right? We have guys from California. We recruit there all the time. We know that level of competition. Yeah, you're running by people in high school, but what are those guys that you're playing going to colleges? Probably not, right? So that was the big thing for me. So that's why I had to go to junior college. So we figured out that NCAA schools weren't really recruiting, and it was too late for me to go to prep school because that's another level, another route I could have gone before if I had started the process earlier, like 12th grade, go to prep school, and then play states and then get recruited like that. That's probably the easiest path for kids, but it involves like moving away from home, right? So for me, I was past that, already in 12th grade trying to do all this. The next best thing was if recruits aren't coming down here, try to get down there. So junior college was the next best step, 2-year junior college and have, get recruited to go to a 4-year, bigger school, right? So did the same process, sent my tape out to all junior colleges, and this time there was more love. They didn't care too much about the playing I was dealing with up here. So got more love. Got recruited by San Francisco City College, one of the best, honestly, one of the best city junior college that you could go to because they're very successful, national championships galore. Our head coach was like, Nick Saban in Alabama, right? So you get there, and you can already tell this is a different environment. They ran it like a Division I program. You got Division I coaches coming to practice almost every day. I remember Nick Saban was there. All the top D1 schools were there. So you already felt it was a great environment. But then the football part was the toughest part, man, because I'm coming from Canada, and I'm the best on my team. But there, they have dudes.
Everybody is best on the team.
Everybody's the best on the team, right? And these dudes are on another level because they're used to playing higher competition in high school, and they're just taking it more serious on a different level. So there's an adjustment period that you have to go through, man. And it took me almost like 6 months to catch up, right? Because I'm seeing all these guys. I'm like, man, my moves aren't working the same way they were working down here, right? My speed isn't translating the same way as translating down there, right? I got to figure out different ways to get open now. I got to figure out ways to change speeds, and it just took me, a little bit to catch up. So 6 months, literally, to catch up the whole season. But my second year, had to like dig deep, put that work in, understand what I need to do. And there was a lot of dog days where you're like, man, like I'm probably not built for this, man. Let me just go back to Canada and go to the CIS and dominate up there, and life will be good. But nah, it's like something was like, nah, man, you came down here for a reason. You came too far to go to just come this far. Stick it out. The next year, a lot better year for me because I was able to adjust, understand what I was doing, earn a starting spot, and then starting to get recruited from there. Then was getting like good looks from like University of Hawaii. Even took a visit down there, San Diego State. Almost committed there. Then Buffalo came through. So that's kind of my recruiting experience, man. Hope I didn't take too much time.
No, man, I love it, bro. And I actually want to break it down a little bit more, man, because, well, first and foremost, man, shout out to junior colleges, bro. It is tough. It is tough. It is tough, man. It's one of those positions, right? Because I went to Barton Community College. Obviously, you don't go to junior college necessarily by choice.
Yes, no one's there because they want to be there.
Tell you that right now. I've been very fortunate to be able to have some of the youth, trust me in the sense of mentorship. And some of them are in junior college right now. And I remember telling them, I said, look, you go to junior college to get out of junior college. You don't go to junior college to play around.
Mhm.
For you, you said, man, some of my moves ain't working. Man, but I'm not breaking away from the competition like how I used to break off. And it took you 6 months to kind of adjust to that system. What were you doing in that 6 months, man? Were you studying more plays? Were you doing extra work? What were you doing, I guess, to even the playing field for you?
Dude, it was tough, man, because the practice was tough on itself because they didn't have any like NCAA regulations where you have a certain time, 40 hours that you can be in the facility or practicing. So like we were practicing so hard, and every day was like a game day. That's how they did it, man. It was dog eat dog.
Yeah.
So every like guys that were starting, like the backups were trying to take their spots, and you knew that if you practice better, you got a good chance to take a guy's spot. So guys were going so hard every single day. And literally, I spent the whole time practicing, and trying to get better, and it wasn't happening as fast as I wanted to, right? So, obviously, I go to practice and work hard, but everybody was doing the same thing, right? So it really, where the change really happened was, day by day, right, going through that grind day by day, feeling like nothing was happening. Then eventually, like the season ends, play a little bit at the end, but the season ends, the off season comes, and then I'm thinking like this is where I can make some strides because guys are
Yeah.
they're taking some time off, right? And so I was like, I came back home, got with my trainer that I've been with, Jesse Corona, that I've been with for like since I was 15, and we really got to work. Right, while guys were taking time off, we're like, okay, this is what I need. I need to be a little bit stronger. I need to be faster. I need to be quicker. Like I got that. I can catch and I can run routes, but I need it to happen, at a faster rate. So we really got to work that off season. And then I came back, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster while guys had taken some time off, and it showed. And I think the coaches had noticed that. So that was really my journey. And then we got into like spring football, and then fall football. But I really made I had made strides. Obviously, understand going through practice every day throughout this 4 or 5 months of the season. You make strides, you understand, you get better every day, but it's not as fast as you want it to because everybody's doing the same thing. Like you can't really break off and do your own thing. But it was really the off season when I was able to, kind of take some more strides, understand what I needed for my game, and then put that work in to get it.
Man, I remember my time at junior college, bro, and I seen some freaks. Like just some people who, man, I remember, bro, one of my teammates, bro, we're having a track meet and we're in Texas Tech. He was a long jumper, one of the giftiest, giftiest isn't even a word, but I'm gonna say today, one of the giftiest cats. And usually in competition, you're drinking water, right? And he's about to jump and he sits down and his name is Carmetric Ross. I said, Ross, what you got in the cup, man? I was like, bro, I got some soda.
Yeah.
Oh, and the man went out and jumped like 797 and he went back and took a sip of the Coke.
Yeah.
But like they can do stuff. Bro,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense, man. Can you think of some time in your junior college? Did you have any of those teammates that were like that you were just like, yo, how is this? Bro, how can you do that?
Yeah, bro. There's, like I said, there was better athletes in junior college than I saw in Division One, man. Like, because these are guys that are extremely gifted and probably got to pass through school. And then when it was time to really qualify for Division One, they couldn't get put together. So some of the best athletes are in junior college. And I remember one dude, David Henderson. He ended up passing away after junior college, but he was like probably the fastest. Like you think of Tyreek Hill, he was like that in junior college, like fast, but not just long speed, but quick speed too. Like how do you combine like the long speed of a Usain Bolt with the quickness, with Tyreek Hill? Like that's what he was. And in San Francisco, he had broken all of O.J. Simpson's records.
Oh, man.
And to watch this dude in practice, it's like he was playing a different game. He was moving at a different speed. It was like no matter what he did or no matter what the play was, he was gonna take it. It seemed like he was gonna take it to the house for a touchdown, no matter where he was. And he had like all the skills too, like the ability to run, the ability to catch. It was like unfair, and it was like the first time in my life where I was like, man, I wish I had his skill. Like, you know what I mean? It seemed like there was nothing I could do in my life that could get me to that point. That was just God given, natural ability, right? And I just remember thinking that every day I practiced, like, man, would it be like to be like this guy? What would it be like to be that fast, that quick, that good? For like, just give me that for a day, like, what I mean? The things I would be out there doing. So that we had a guy like that, and this guy didn't work out. We go into the weight room and he would do nothing. You know what I mean? And coaches didn't care because he was, one of the best players. Off season, man, like the guy was just all over the place. Like he was unfocused, right, in the school, but just supremely gifted. And like I said, like he would get passes. Teachers loved him, everyone loved him, right? And unfortunately, he passed away. After junior college. But I was always thinking, man, like, what would it be like to be like that guy for a day?
Yeah, man. Hey, man, rest in peace to him, man. It seems like he was a good person on the field and off the field, man. San Diego State, Hawaii. Why'd you pick Buffalo, man? Because Buffalo cold, bro.
It was more Buffalo chose me, man. Like I had a crazy journey, man. Like 'cause Hawaii, was getting ready to go actually commit to Hawaii, man. But then they had a coaching change. So as soon as coaching change happens, the recruits, you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know if they're gonna, want you to continue coming there or they're gonna bring their own guys. So unfortunately for me, man, I was all set to go Hawaii. I could picture it right now. I'm like, man, I'm gonna be on the beach every day.
Yeah.
Probably never gonna come back home.
Soaking up. Yeah.
Unfortunately, coaching change happens and a new regime comes in and switch everything up. San Diego State was a situation where me and another recruit were going for the same spot, going for the same scholarship, and had summer classes, and he was in a junior college where I think it was quarterly, so he had ended his classes earlier and mine. So he was able to enroll earlier. So they just went with the sure thing, and I think we were pretty even on their boards. And I guess he had finished his classes earlier, so they're like, "We're just go with him." And now I was heartbroken because I was like, nothing I could do. Right, I'm like, I can't change the class schedule to complete my summer classes earlier. So it was more a situation where Buffalo chose me, and Buffalo became a situation where, oh man, it's close to home. Yeah. And now I'm like not really out of options, but it was like the next best thing that could happen. So that's kind of how that situation played out.
Man, when you were at Buffalo, right? Being in a Division I school now, bigger classes. You're a student athlete now. There's a bunch more distractions when it comes to classes. You got this much of time to be in practice. You got to be here at this time. You got maybe study hall. You got all these different things, man. What was it like when you got there? 3-part question. 1, what was it like when you got there? How did you handle time management? How did you handle, okay, look, I can only chill with you for 30 minutes. I got practice. How did you handle that? And was there a game to you that said, you know what, not only can I play with these guys at this level, but I can go to the next level? Was there a game for you that kind of stuck out like that?
Okay, so the first part, what was like when I first got to Buffalo, man? It was like when we're at JUCO. It was like almost going to heaven, man, because JUCO was hell, man. JUCO was tough. Everything was JUCO. Like the facilities weren't great. The equipment wasn't great.
The food wasn't great,
man. Practicing from it seemed like breakfast till dawn, right? So getting to Buffalo when you first get there, everything jumps out at you. Like the facility, you can tell there's more money into the facility. Coaches, the gear that you get so much more gear, and it makes you feel special. So it almost feels like you're in heaven. You're going from to hell to heaven. So it's a great feeling. Like you feel like you kind of made it somewhere, right? You feel like you came from kind of rags to riches, kind of. So it's a great feeling when you get on campus. And then handling like time management, they almost do everything for you, right? Because your whole day is scheduled, right? Classes, right? Meetings, and then study hall. Then you got to get to bed because you got workouts in the morning. So everything is kind of done for you. And if you don't fall in line, it's going to be really easy to get out of whack. So they kind of handle all that for you, which is nice because at that age you don't want to be at that age, you're not really thinking about time management as much. So it's nice that they do it for you because it really sets you up for success later in life because you understand, right? You have to really, chart down everything you need to do to get things done. So I was really appreciative of their approach, and I didn't realize it then. I'm like, man, we got another thing. Oh man, then I got class, then I got meetings. So I was like, I really appreciated when I got to a professional level because there's less to do when you get to professional because all you have to do is play football and go to practice. But then you have life stuff now, so that really write down and really manage your time was easier going through the college experience. And then was there a game that I had that I thought I had that game when I was in junior college when it was a championship game in junior college and there was recruits on the other side that was going to Alabama, Tennessee, like all these D1 schools. Like I knew, so it was high level competition. Now there's a lot of guys on my team that were going to big schools like Oregon, UCLA, USC too, right? So it was a really big matchup, and I ended up like being the MVP of that game. Lead both sides and catches and yards, and I was like, man, like that's what made me feel like I could make it and be a professional because it was a high level competition, high level coaching, a lot at stake, and I was able to rise up in that situation. So after that, I had the utmost confidence. I'm like, man, like these are great athletes. All these athletes are going to bigger schools than I'm going to. I can play with them. I can break them off, and I knew that from then I could make it professionally.
It's always good to hear that, bro, because there's always the correlation between each sport. I think every sport, every person has that moment, regardless, even if you're an athlete or not. You always have a moment where you believe that you belong there, and something happens and it confirms it, and you're like, you know what? Yeah, man. 2013 draft day, right? If I remember correctly, 2013, you were drafted 22nd overall, right?
Yeah, great.
To Toronto.
Yeah.
I think that's special, bro, because that's home, right? That's home, playing in front of the whole crowd. Hey, all your partners from school can come and watch. They can come to the game. They're probably hitting you up like, hey, bro, you can slide me a couple tickets on this. All these different things. Mom's there, pops there, family's there, man. What was that moment like? Where were you? Were you wearing a three-piece suit? What were you doing in that moment, man? What was draft day like for you? And what was it like to get your name called, bro?
Man, it was like you said, it was special. I remember that day like it was yesterday because you know that in one moment your life is gonna change. Like the city you're gonna live in is about to be changed. The people you hang out with is gonna be different. You don't know, right? Like it's all up in the air. You can go to any city. You could end up in BC, or you can be in Montreal, or you can be Saskatchewan. You don't know where you're about to go, where your career is gonna start. So that's all from there. So the whole day is like anxiety filled, right? Because
Yeah.
you're on one hand, you're going to be drafted, so you're happy. You understand that, hey man, I got a chance to play football. And my mindset was, man, I'll be happy to go anywhere. You know what I mean? Just as long as I get to play football, that's a blessing. I had no idea Toronto was going to draft me because throughout the whole draft process, I had talked to every single team in the CFL except for Toronto, and I had no idea. And the funny thing is, my best friend that I told you was helping me with recruiting growing up. He got a job as a scout with the Argonauts, and so he was on the staff at that time. And well, he didn't tell me nothing. Obviously, he's good at his job. He's with the Miami Dolphins now, but he didn't tell me anything. I had no idea what was going to happen. But I that day that the draft was early, I think earlier in the day, and I had a draft party with my family and all my friends at the gym that I train at Target Training. So it was a very surreal day. Early watching the draft on TSN. It was like I think it was 11 or 12 in the afternoon, man. I don't know why they did it at that time, but yeah, it was 11 or 12. So we're watching the draft. Me, my trainer, we're at the gym and watching it, and they call my name, and I was like, one receiver gets taken. I know, I'm like, man, I think I'm better than him, but okay, whatever. I'm about to go next, and I'm seeing all the teams picking, and they're all talking, and I had no idea what was going on. I get the call from my boy, but that was helping me with recruiting. Like I told you, Rossetti. He calls me. He's like, buddy, we just traded up. We're gonna draft you. Here's the GM, or whatever. And I was like, I didn't hear anything anyone said after that. When I heard Toronto was drafting me, I was like, are you you could have said, I'm giving you $1 million. I would have never heard it, bro, because I was just over the moon. I'm like, this is unbelievable. The team I grew up cheering for, the team I love, I get an opportunity to play for them and help them. It's like, you couldn't ask for anything more, right? So, and I knew everybody. I knew a lot of guys on the team already. I get to stay in my home city. Like you said, my parents did come to the game. It was the best situation you could ever ask for, honestly.
You know, man, it's so good to hear stories like that, because it's like, one, man, that's your boy calling you and saying, look, man, this is what's going to be. So it's a familiar voice. Your rookie year, man, and I want to work backwards. I want to talk mental, then physical. From a mental standpoint of things, how did you handle the rookie year? Because yes, you're at home, but with home comes distractions. You know, you're getting paid to play football now.
Yeah.
Officially getting paid to play football now. What did that look like in the sense of what are you doing with your money to be able to sustain this, right? Because you got to still put yourself in a position to be successful in this league. Now you're a professional. It's a big difference between being a high school athlete, a collegiate athlete, but being a professional. The game may be the same, but I think the external things come into play that adds the two together, man. What was that rookie year like from a mental side of things, getting your mind right every day, learning this new playbook? And then what was it like physically playing your rookie year? Was there some guidance there? Was somebody that helped you, or were everybody else just like, you're not going to take my spot, man. You got to learn it on your own? Because there is some of that.
Yeah, there is a lot of that.
In every sport, in every field, every profession. Walk me a little bit through that rookie year for you, man.
The rookie year was interesting, man, because like I said, I knew some people on the team, like the Andre Berries and Chad Owens of the world. And, you know, it was cool because I got an opportunity to go there, and they're a little bit older. So they helped me so much because they're secure in their spots, right? They helped me understand the game so much more. Even if Jason Barnes, Matt Barnes' brother, was on our team, and you know he was tremendous help for me. And they had just a veteran receiving core. So I walked into a great situation where guys were not helping me because they thought I was going to take a job. It was the opposite. They were so confident in what they were doing, and they kind of had a great culture where man, as we're only as good as our weakest link. So they were trying to build me up. Yeah. Work with me, and it really helped because at the start I wasn't playing a lot. I wasn't playing a lot at all, so I was adjusting to life at home. All the girls from high school were hitting me up, so dealing with that, it was extremely interesting. A lot of distraction, but I never let that affect my play on the field, because that's the only thing that I cared about. The only thing I cared about was being great at football, and that was extremely important to me. And I had great help. I had great mentors and Chad Owens. And when I got my opportunity, I think my rookie year, Labor Day, man, my first ever start, I was able to play well and earn some of the trust of my coaches because I was prepared for that, right? And I wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for some of the veterans on the team, kind of helping me. And I honestly didn't know I could play in the CFL until that's my first start ever. I don't even think my coaches knew I could play, right? Because the whole mood switched up after. Now my assistant coach, my assistant, the receivers coach, who ends up being my head coach later on, is like, hey man, let's stay after practice, let's do this and that, because he started to believe in me, in my skills after what I had shown. So it was really cool experience my rookie year. I was fortunate to be able to address and be a part of every game, not necessarily starting and playing. It was a good experience for me, and I think about that with fond memories because it was just a whirlwind, man. You're in your city, like you said. You got all your friends, my family, everybody asking for tickets, which is a blessing, right? I can't say that's a bad thing because they're not asking for tickets for everyone.
Yeah.
That's a blessing. And I know, like, once you're done playing, no one's gonna be asking you for tickets anyway.
Not gonna be asking for nothing.
Right. So I took it as a blessing, and to be able to help. There's something about helping the city that you love, in a professional setting is there's nothing can replace that, man. So I was really excited to be able to do that and experience CFL football for the first time.
From Toronto, you came out west, man. You came to the real cold of Canada. You went to Edmonton. Man, but before we talk about the sports side, man, what year did you have your daughter in?
2016, my first daughter was 2016.
Ma'am, how hard was it? Because I think people from the outside looking in, they see the sport, right? They see, wow, this person is so lucky to be able to be here and is so all these different things. But like everything else, is a full-time job. And I think one of the hardest things that an athlete has to sacrifice, or any person sacrifice, is time. You're putting time into something in order to get the financial gain to get back that time. Man, what was it like, man, knowing that you're here out west, you're doing your job, but when you're doing your job and your family's out east, it can kind of feel like, man, is this really worth it? You know what I'm saying? Because
So
you're missing first steps, you're missing the teeth, you're missing certain things. What was it like, man, knowing that you had to sacrifice this to get something else, but this was still here, man? Walk me through that, some of those sacrifices and some of those nights where you're just like, man, I'm sore, I'm tired, I want a home cooked meal. I just want to be with the family, man. What in those moments, what did you do to help find that joy, even though you couldn't be with them?
yeah, dude, that was probably just one of the hardest things I had to do in my whole life, like having the family back in Toronto and moving out west. And the whole reason I wouldn't have never did it. Like, I remember talking to my wife and saying, "Hey, man, we got an offer from Toronto." That was after my second year, and then I haven't really, proven myself in the league. I didn't know if I was going to get an opportunity to play in Toronto, the opportunity that I wanted because we had so many good players. And then Edmonton, like I said, my old assistant coach was now the head coach in Edmonton, and I said that he believed in me, right? So, I talked to him a little bit, and he said, "Hey, man, you'll get an opportunity here. Same offense." And I was like, "Man, all I wanted to is to play, right? I don't want to sit the bench anymore. I want to play. I want an opportunity to play." So I talked to my wife, I'm like, "Yeah, we got an opportunity in Edmonton."
Mhm.
This was before my daughter was born, but we were pregnant at the time, and she was like, "Go for it, man. This is like your dream to play professional football.
Wow,
Go for it."
wow.
So I was on the fence about it. I was like, I don't want to leave. Like, I'm about to have a daughter. Like, I don't want to leave. Like, I want to be here for every little thing. But uh, she was, really, the one that pushed me towards it. She knew it was the best thing. Like, my dream was to play professional football. She knew it was the best thing for my career. So she pushed me towards it, and I would have never did it if it wasn't for her. So I get to Edmonton, man, and I had a lot of friends on the team. Like it was weird because a lot of like 4 or 5 guys I played youth football with were on the
Mhm.
Edmonton team. So it felt like family, and it was really important. Like, one of my best friends in the world, Blair Smith, lives in Edmonton, so it felt like home away from home. And I feel like if it wasn't for him and a few other guys on the team, I probably would have went back home, man, because it's tough. There are nights where, like, I'm thinking, like, we're FaceTiming, and daughter is saying a few words, and I'm missing that, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I just like, man, I just want to go home. Like, what is it, right? But the thing about football is, like, every day you gotta challenge yourself. You're challenged, and you gotta prove yourself. So on one hand, I'm missing home, but on the other hand, I know I got practice next day, and I gotta perform and do it to my best of my ability, or I can't provide for the family, right? So it's a big balancing act, and it's I always tell people, man, you gotta find wherever you're at, man, you gotta find you gotta have like a group of people that get in your circle that will support you or will tell you whether you're doing right or wrong, right? And for me, I was able to have that circle in Edmonton of guys that understood my background, understood that I was missing my family, was able to kind of push me along, right? If I needed, if I was missing my family, maybe they'll take me out, to eat, with their family, right? So it was a good experience, going to Edmonton and being away, but I always kick myself because there are times where you're missing stuff like first steps, with the
Yeah.
daughter, and you're missing that, but it's for the greater good. So I guess that's how you justify it, but it was some tough times, man. Like you said, it isn't easy. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone, but it was for the love of the game. It was for the family. It was so I that's how I justify it, and man, it's tough, man. Thinking about that is tough, but it's good. Obviously, we had bye weeks, so I was
Yeah.
able to go home every now and then, and obviously the whole off season I'll be home. But for those 6 months, It ain't easy, man.
Because those 6 months are long.
It's long, man.
It obviously paid off, man, because I remember clicking on some games and I saw you breaking some long runs. I saw they're throwing you the ball a lot more, man. Obviously, apart from playing time, what else changed in Edmonton? Because I got the sense of it from the outside looking in, man, that you were starting to have fun again.
Yeah, man, that's a good observation. Yeah. Like no one when you play a sport, you want to play, right? So when I was in Toronto, I wasn't playing as much as I wanted to, and going to Edmonton, obviously had to earn playing time by my play. But I learned a lot. I learned. I grew up a lot when I got to Edmonton because I knew that the team that drafts you, they're gonna invest a lot in you. They're gonna make sure that you do well. But I was going to Edmonton. It was a new team. They didn't. The head coach knew me, but no one else knew me. I had to prove myself every single day. I had to understand what it meant to be a professional every single day. And I think going out there really developed my game because I understood that whatever role was given to me, I had to be the best possible player at that role to earn more. Right. So that was a big thing for me in Edmonton that allowed me to thrive because every year my role got bigger and bigger and bigger. So I really can thank Edmonton for that and allowing me to see that, hey man, I'm not in Toronto anymore. It ain't all good. You got to earn everything that you're gonna get, and that's how I looked at that situation. And I was having a lot more fun. You definitely have more fun when you're playing and doing what you love, honestly. Like so, that is a great observation that you had, and I've never, no one's ever asked me or realized that before. But it was more fun, especially getting to do what I love.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to come on the bench and just be on the bench, bro.
Yeah.
So you obviously want to get in the game because sometimes, man, when you're there to do a job that you can do, but you don't get to produce at that job, you can kind of lose the love of it. Not that the love isn't there, but you're not feeling the love. So how can you love something that doesn't love you back, right? But man, I think I think at a high level performing state in any profession, there is a sense of pressure that comes with it. Maybe you go, you drop a pass you know you should have caught. Maybe you knew you should have broke a tackle that you didn't break, and it's second and one. You're like, oh man, I know it's 1 yard, but how do you handle pressure? How do you handle a pressure situation to get yourself back in the game, but also like, man, what if you drop the pass that could have won the game? You got to take that home. How do you take that pressure and show up tomorrow? How do you deal with pressure?
Man, pressure is interesting because I look at pressure and I'm like, the only reason you're feeling pressure right now is because you care, right? So
Mm,
I look at that and I think about the times where I had the most pressure or the crowd has been the loudest and you need to perform. It almost wakes you up and makes you lock in that much more because the stakes are so high, right? And it just goes back to practice though, because if you practice a lot, and putting yourself in pressure situations, because there's times I remember even being a kid, telling myself, man, this is the last drive of the game, and you need, you know what I mean, and just putting yourself in as many pressure situations as possible. Then when the pressure situation actually shows up, you're okay, right? Because you've been through it so many times. And I always do that. I mean, I'm harder on myself than anyone else could ever be on me. So I put myself under pressure all the time, even in practice, man. I get nervous for practice because like people don't care, but I care, right? I want
yeah.
to be great. You know what I mean? So I'm always putting myself under pressure to perform. And then when the game shows up, I'm already used to all that pressure. I'm just performing right at that point. So pressure is there. It's always there. But especially when you're playing competitive sport and you're a high level athletes competing and competing all the time. But I always put it like that. Like I'm always under pressure, whether it's practice or a game. Like I go into practices and I'm like, this is a game. Like I treat every day like a game, right? So it's never feel like, oh, this is way more than I've ever, and I just fold, right? It's never
Mm,
that. I'm always putting myself in that situation. So like practice games just become another version of practice, just different jerseys and a crowd. So that's how I deal with it, and I understand that it's always there, but if it's not something that's new, then I'm able to deal with it, right? So if it's a situation where I don't think I can handle it, or I haven't ever put myself in that spot mentally, then then that's where you find the people kind of fold under pressure. You see like the announcers like, oh, the moment was too big for him, right? So for me, I always make sure the moment's never too big for me. I'm always in my head in practice. Every time I'm catching the ball, this is the most important thing I'm doing. This is the most important situation I could be dealing with. So that's how I kind of deal with it.
Man, that's great advice, bro. That's a lot of packed wisdom right there, man. For the athlete making the transition from college to pros, man, what is one tip that you would give to them? And maybe it's not a physical tip, but maybe it's one thing that helped you that you would give to them to make their pathway maybe a little easier.
Yeah, my thing I always tell young athletes is everybody thinks they're gonna be the star player every team they go to. Like you're not gonna be the star player. I'll tell you that much right now. Like there's only very handful of them. You might be right, and that's good for you, but not everybody. Chances are you're not going to be right. So like I said before, man, like you gotta understand that whatever the coaches are asking of you, whatever your role is at the time. Like you come in as a rookie, you might have to play special teams. You might have to do all these little things that you weren't doing in college, right? My thing is, whatever role or situation you're in, be the best at that role, even if it's not the role that you want, right? So everybody wants to be a star. Nobody wants to be out there playing special teams, right? But sometimes you're in that situation, and you not being the best at that situation is going to find you out the league or out of the game faster than you ever could imagine, right? So be a star. Like I'm not saying you should come in and want to be a role player. No, nobody wants to be a role player. But what do you want to do? Do you want to play this sport, for a long time, or do you want to, think you're a star player and act like a star player and be out the league? You know how many star players are out the league in 2 years because it didn't happen for them? No. Even star players start somewhere, right? Like some of the best players, like that's the best piece of advice I ever got from my head coach, Jason Moss. He told me some of the best players he's ever seen in this league started off playing special teams, right? And after he gave me that piece of advice, I'm like, man, I want to play receiver, but I'm gonna go out there and be the best special teams player I could be. And it changed everything. I mean, I never tackled anyone, but I ended up leading our team in special team tackles for
Wow.
years, right? So I was my mindset switch. I'm like, whatever, I'm gonna be a superstar in my role, right? So not everybody can be a superstar, but you can be a superstar in your role, and that's one thing I tell young guys. Like, you come up, man, and you want to play a long time, be a superstar in whatever role they give you. They ask you to block our game, be the best blocker, in the league, that they've ever seen at that role, and that will lead to more opportunities.
Man, that's another great advice, man. And that came from a person who's in the Hall of Fame now, isn't he? Isn't Jason in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think he's in the Edmonton Hall of Fame, but yeah, he's well known, man. He's the man.
Man, last couple questions, bro, and this just kind of came to me as as we were talking. I believe that sacrifices that we make up front comes back at some point down the road. You're drafted to Toronto. Before you were traded before you signed with Edmonton, you were having a child, right, with your wife. Now you're back in Toronto with your, you got two girls now,
yeah,
two baby girls, and your wife. You left with just the wife was there, baby was on the way, and now you come back, and now your family is here, man.
Yeah.
In the midst of not being able to play, actually, with the pandemic happening this time around, it came back full circle in a different capacity, man. Does this time feel any different for you?
Ooh, definitely, man. It's a whole different situation because I'm in a different place career wise. I'm in a different place mentally. I'm in a different place family wise, right? Different things are important, right? When you're younger, all you care about is yourself. Like you care about, okay, what am I gonna do today? How am I gonna have fun? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna work out? Just everything revolves around yourself, right? And that's when you're younger. But now I'm in a situation where every decision I make affects, three other people, right? So I have to be on my game at all times, and it's something that I don't take lightly, and that's something that I cherish. Being responsible for three other people is a huge responsibility, but it's what's important to me, right? It's something that I want. So I'm very grateful to be in the situation I'm in, to be back home, to have my family, here in the same city. and then also to have the pandemic, to have spent more time than I've ever spent with, with them, because we couldn't even go outside, right, for a while.
You
It's
didn't miss
definitely
nothing.
right. I did not miss a thing. So no, it's really a blessing for sure. Um, just a different. I think about back then, and sometimes I'll be like on the couch and have two girls screaming, and I'm thinking, man, like back to my rookie year, man, I'll be taking a nap right now. But things have changed so much, and I appreciate the different stages for what they were, because everyone always wants something they don't have, and I'm thinking about it like, okay, when I was younger, I would always think about the future and like having a family and having kids.
Yeah,
And then now that I'm older and I have kids, I'm thinking about back when I was a rookie. So I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
just enjoy what you have now, because in the future you're going to be wishing to have this time back, right? So just living in the present is something that I always remind myself of daily, man, because it's so funny because we're here now, and then we always want to think about, oh, back when I was in this spot, that was like so cool, I wish I could go back. Like, nah, man, because in the future you're gonna be wishing to come back here, right? So
Mm,
enjoy right now, and live it for what it is, man. So that's something I'm doing, man.
man, every time I see you with your kids, man, I could tell there's so much joy and excitement because it's like, man, like there is just something about the youth that rejuvenates us, right? And I can see that in you, just the love that you have, man. And I can tell that you know you're gonna have your hands full because they're beautiful babies. They're beautiful babies. But at the same time, man, I know that what you and your wife passed down to them is something they can take with them for the rest of their lives, man. Let's get into these last 5 questions, man. Last easy 5 questions. Well, they shouldn't be hard. The first and the last question are ones that I ask people, the same ones. Question one, man, if you were trapped on a deserted island and you could only take 3 things for a week, what would those 3 things be?
Ooh, okay, but not people.
It could be anything. It could be
Okay,
anything.
then
You could
I
take
have to.
3 people. You could take one.
Oh man, because I can't leave the family behind. I'm trapped, right? So I've got three. I have to take the family like and then figure it out from there. So I got to take my wife and 2 daughters. I can think of other things I take, but if I didn't say them, I'd probably be in trouble. So
Here's what we'll do. We'll add the whole family in one, and
okay,
you can pick 2 more.
okay. I gotta take my phone, right? Because when I have cell service, I take my phone. Let's assume I have cell service, so I can tell someone I'm on a desert island, and then order some Uber Eats, maybe.
Uber Jets. Uber Jets.
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously these days you can do everything on your phone, watch TV, and all that thing. So okay, I have my phone. That's trap. Hmm. I guess I can read books on my phone too, right? So I don't need
Hmm.
books. Okay. Um. hmm. Ooh, that is good. I had never been asked this question before. So phone, um, GPS. I bring. Oh, I guess you got that on your phone.
It's
It's
on
so
the
weird,
phone.
man. It's like these phones are so powerful now. Okay. I bring a football so I can throw around my football. So phone, football, and something I use every day. Dude, that's a great question. Oh man. Okay, well, before I answer my last one, what would you bring?
Man, I would bring like a sword, like a machete or a sword, so I can go because I gotta eat. You know what I'm saying? So I gotta go and I gotta chop and I gotta cut, and I would bring like a massive tent because I don't want to sleep on the bro snakes and stuff out there, bro. But and then you know, bro, I would bring fire, bro, like a lighter or something.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because even though there's water there, bro, you can't just trust any water. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I got to be able to boil it, and I know I can always make soup,
Yeah.
So that's what I would bring.
Oh man, that's good. All right. So I would bring I forget about the football. I'll bring my phone. I would bring like basic survival tools, right? So I would bring maybe a Swiss knife, right, with all the the best Swiss knife possible, and then I'd have to bring a tent because I need something to sleep in. That's yeah. I stole a couple of yours, but that you just made me realize what was most important. Like how are you just gonna be sleeping at you know what I mean on the sand or what? Yeah.
Question two, man. Do you have a pregame ritual, a game ritual, a post-game ritual? What's one of your rituals?
Dude, my ritual is really throughout the week, right? I do the same thing
Mm,
throughout the week because it makes me feel good going to the game that I was able to complete everything I wanted to complete. So basically, before practice, we would have work before even meetings. First thing in the morning, I get to the facility, work out, and then we have all the things for the team, right? We have meetings, then practice. Then post practice, I'll do some stretches, and if I couldn't get to anything to work out, finish that out. Then go home, do all the recovery stuff, and go home, watch the film of the practice, take notes, right, and then come back the next day and do it all over. So I do that every single day leading up to the game, and by game time, I know how I look in practice, how I feel because I've done all my workouts on my recovery, and I'm ready to go. So it's more of a whole week ritual. And if I miss something, I kind of be I make sure not to miss anything because I kind of be like, man, like I don't feel, you know what I mean? It's just you don't feel the best. So it's almost like a weekly ritual that I accomplish, and it makes me feel great going into the game.
man, I hope my young athletes listening to this, man. I hope you just heard what the man said.
Yeah, when you do
Man,
something one day, man, it's not like okay, you gonna put your right sock before your left, and that's gonna make you play good. Nah, it's about what you do, throughout the week.
question three, man. You're having one of your annual dinners, right? And you can invite four people to your dinner, past or present.
Mm,
Who are you sending the invite to? You got four.
okay, okay, definitely have to have Michael Jordan because probably one of the greatest athletes of all time.
And,
Um,
and he's probably bringing a good side with him too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, that's a great one. I'll probably have Michael Jordan, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. I think that'd be unbelievable, especially as we're reaching into Black History Month, and then um, just obviously best athlete and best social activist, both of them. And one more person, four people. That's tough, man. How about Oprah Winfrey?
Mm, mm.
How about Oprah Winfrey?
Makes
Someone that's not in the sports realm but can give perspective. I think that will be a good table because you can learn a lot from all of them.
That'd be an interesting conversation, man.
Reaching
Uh,
into the past, present, and a little bit about history.
question four, man. Growing up, who who did you look up to? Did you have a hero? Did you have someone who you looked up to that said, you know what, I want to do that, or I like the way how he goes about himself? Who was someone that you looked up to?
You know what? And I didn't realize it until it was later. It was really my dad, because the way he went about his business, man, he was everything we did, man. Like we'd be going to the doctor's appointment 10 minutes early, going to the airport, man, 3 hours early. You know what I mean? Always punctual for everything. He always the way he'd always tell me to treat the way I saw him treating people. Like he would treat the owner of a company the same way he'd treat the person cleaning the company, right? The janitor. So I always saw him, treating everybody with the utmost respect, and I didn't realize it until I was later. I'm like, man, this guy, I really had it figured out. And he always told me, man, you got to respect every single person
Mm,
on this earth, man, no matter what they do, no matter what they look like, no matter what, right? So I really looked up to my dad, man, because I always tell him, man, you were right about so much stuff. I just didn't want to listen to you, right? At a younger age. So I really looked up to my dad. Obviously, Michael Jordan was a big one, to look up to. And then in the NFL, a bunch of guys. I love Deion Sanders. I love the swagger that he played with. I love the fact that he could play one day he could be playing basketball, the next day he'll be playing baseball, and it seemed like he could do anything in both those spaces. So those are some people I looked up to. Growing up, and obviously a moderate shot, man. Just the
Man,
media man that he was. So yeah, that was it for me.
last question, man. Father, husband, son, parent, athlete, entrepreneur, uh, podcast host, all of these different things, man. Everything that you have overcome in the past, everything that you willed yourself to do, to accomplish, man. If there was one word to describe you, what would that one word be and why?
One word. That's great, man. Just I think I would do. I would choose happy because I know honestly, like since I've been a kid, all my teachers everywhere I go, man, they always. I remember going back to my school and they're like, man, you were always laughing, you were always smiling, and even some of my old coaches like, man, I love the positive attitude that you always have. So I guess I would say happy because no matter what the situation is, man, like for some reason, like I always find the best out of it, right? So there've been times where things haven't been the greatest, but in my head, I didn't know they weren't the greatest. I
Mm,
didn't tell myself all the
that's
things
good.
I didn't have. I always, was able to tell myself all the things I do have, all the things I am blessed to have. And I've always never been one to compare myself to anyone else, right? So I think that's what happens, or at least a lot of dissatisfaction or unhappiness with a lot of people is like they're like, oh man, like me and this guy are the same age, like why is he doing more than me, or why does he have this and I don't have that? I mean, I don't care. I mean, I'm just I'm just me, right? So I think for me, I've been blessed with the ability to just see the bright side of every situation I'm in. Um, I mean, so there has conversations with my wife where she's things are supposed to be done in the house, or kids are freaking out. I'm like, wait, I was like, it's all good. Like she's like, why are you so calm? It's like we gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, and go. Right? She's almost the not the opposite of me, but she's more on the ball with everything
Hmm.
that we have to do, and I'm just just here thinking everything's all good, and that can get me in trouble sometimes. Thinking everything's all good, and the sense of urgency isn't there, and next thing you know, kids are late for gas. So yeah, no, that's one way I would describe myself is just happy, man, because I always try to see the bright side of everything.
That's 100% true, bro. Because man, I remember, and this is something that I definitely wanted to share, man. When I signed with the Tiger Cats, my short stint in the CFL, man, you were the first person to reach out on some positive stuff, right? You reached out, you said, man, whatever you need, bro, like just let me know. And I always appreciate that because I'm just like, man, bro, even when I was running track, nobody ever did that to me. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciated that. And even though I didn't know you, it showed me a lot about your character. And everything that you just described is exactly how you go about your life, man. You don't you it's in a world that is negative, it is very hard to be one of those people who choose to see the positive in it, man. So I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate you, man. And where can people keep in touch with you, man? Make sure you tell us about the podcast, bro. Because matter of fact, I'm gonna tell the people about the podcast, man. The All Ball podcast, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to the pinball episode the other day, but before I was listening to because I always like to listen to podcasts if I'm working out or if I'm like going for a walk or flying and stuff like that. And so the first time I actually listened to your podcast was with, I want to say, Adarius Bowman. That that man is hilarious, bro.
Hilarious.
But where can people keep in touch with you, man? Where can they continue to follow your career and definitely make sure you are listening to the All Ball podcast, man?
Yeah, no, people can definitely find me on obviously all the socials, Natey Adjei 3 on IG. Just type in Natey Adjei on Twitter. I'm sure I'll pop up. But like you said, got the podcast going, man. I was, for this podcast, I really was inspired by you, and I don't know if I ever told you, but to see an athlete, step into this space where you're using your voice and your platform to share your experiences. I was really huge, right? I never really saw someone I knew doing that, and you're the first person I saw. So you're a big inspiration for me.
Appreciate you,
I
bro.
thought I'd tell you, but I don't think I ever told you. But you were really one of the big inspiration for me to step into it and have confidence because I saw you, really speaking confidently and about all your experiences and helping people. And I was like, man, like this guy's got it. So you gave me confidence and you gave me
Appreciate you, bro.
inspiration to step into the space. But yeah, you can find the All Ball podcast. I do a different kind of take. I like you said, I like to laugh and I'm happy. So I get into that side with the athletes that I have on. Talk about the lighter stuff about sports. Kind of the funnier, like if they ever had anything funny happen to them or trash talking stories that didn't work out. I want to know all those things. So it's been a cool ride so far, and I'm happy I started it. And a huge shout out to you, man, for being an inspiration. But yeah, man, the All Ball podcast it's still going on. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. It's still going right now. Shout out to you, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate that, bro, man. And I look forward to when you get your studio, you know what I'm saying, that, we can have this conversation in person, bro.
Sure, absolutely, man. Absolutely. We definitely got to do it in person at some point. But, it is 2021 now, and, everything. This seems like how everybody's interacting nowadays, man. I just had a virtual party, birthday party this past weekend with one of my daughter's friends. So I'm like, man, this is unbelievable. And they sent over a package that, a little treasure hunt that we can have in the house. It was unbelievable,
What?
man. So, yeah, things are changing,
Oh, I've
man.
never heard that before, bro. That's mad. That's
It,
crazy.
it was fun. It was really fun and really creative way they did it. And I see that's probably how it's going to be in the future, man. It's crazy.
That's interesting, bro. But, man, I don't want to take up more of your time, bro. I appreciate you again. Thanks for jumping on, bro. And if I can help with anything, bro, let's continue to stay in touch, bro.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, man. Pleasure to be out with you, man.
It's love, bro. Stay safe, man.
All right, brother.